without further ado, I'd like to introduce everybody to Oliver Velez, who is the Chief Trading Officer and CEO of iFund Traders. Oliver was actually Money Show's first inaugural keynote speaker at our first Traders Expo. He's an international best-selling author, world-renowned trader, and an entrepreneur, is one of the world's most respected and celebrated traders of all time. In 1999, Dow Jones dubbed him the Messiah of trading. And today, in 2021, he continues to be defined as one of the most influential leaders of his generation. And with that said, Oliver, welcome. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Joe. And thanks once again to the Money Show for inviting me. Thank you all for also supporting me as well and being present during this presentation. I do have what I consider to be a dynamic presentation for you. I do encourage that you take some notes. I also encourage that you ask some questions, but toward the end of the presentation, which I might not be able to get to, but I do have a team standing by that will be dedicated to answering any of your questions in my personalized booth. Now, today we're going to talk about how to profit from an era that many people may not realize that we've been in for quite some time. And I call this new age or this era the era of dematerialization or digitization. And I use those words interchangeably as well. And I believe that once you understand this undercurrent that is driving forces throughout all of financial markets around the world, this movement toward taking the physical and turning it into the non-physical, when you understand that that's the current, that's the undercurrent behind some of the biggest opportunities that are presenting themselves to investors and traders today, then that will give you a great ability to know where to go to search for your opportunities. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to profit from this new age of dematerialization. Now, I do realize that there might be some individuals here who have no idea who I am. So very quickly, let me give you a quick preview of who I am. Now, I'm the founder of a company called ifundtraders.com, but originally I was the founder and creator of another company called Pristine Capital Management. Many people know that company more as pristine.com. That company was started by me in the early 1990s and went on to be one of the industry's most innovative and largest trading advisory firms in the entire trading and investing space. I have a 36-year career as a professional trader. I'm an inaugural keynote speaker for this event. As Joe mentioned, I've trained thousands of traders worldwide. I'm the international best-selling author of 5 books written in 5 different languages. And I have over 10,000 plus traders that I am currently trading in both equities, Forex, and the cryptocurrency markets. I continue to be an international speaker and consultant and advisor to financial firms all over the world today. So in a nutshell, I am one of the pioneers of the active trading space. I've been in this industry since 1986 and continue to press the envelope as it relates to spreading the gospel of trading around the world. Very quickly, this is actually an article that was written on my keynote speech for the first International Day Traders Expo. This is an article written by Barron's naming me the #1 source to go to in the United States for professional style services in the trading industry. And this is an image of some of my books written in various different languages. And if you're interested in any of those, all you have to do is search Amazon, Oliver Velez books on Amazon, and you'll get the full list. And of course, before I delve into the material today, traders, I would like, if you consider this information even a little bit helpful, I'd love for you to follow me on my various social media networks where I provide something every single day of value as it relates to trading the financial markets. I have 3 individual YouTube channels in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And these channels continue to be amongst the fastest growing channels on YouTube as it relates to active trading. So let's start our topic today. I've got a very interesting group of facts and information to share with you. The world is being dematerialized. And there's still a large group of individuals, even in the investment space, even in the trading space, who have not yet wrapped their minds or their hands around this reality. And it's holding them back from their ability to really identify great opportunities in the financial world, because this is the number one undercurrent behind the technological movements today, which are presenting the greatest opportunities in the market. So you have to understand that we're moving from the physical to the non-physical, or the analog to the digital, which is practically the same thing. Now, here are some historical examples of this movement of dematerialization. We can start with God. I mean, many years ago, obviously, the human race was largely always looking to something bigger than themselves to give credit, to give praise to, in the form of a god, in the form of a deity. Many of these deities or these god forms were physical in nature, a statue, a mountain. That moved to the elements, to worshiping the sun, the moon, and to actual humans. And of course, today, the vast majority of people in the world, if they worship something that they consider to be a higher force, it is more ethereal. It is more, not necessarily concept in nature, but more idealistic. It's not something you can touch. It's not something you can feel. It's not something that you can literally point to. So even from a religious perspective, even from a belief perspective, we have been dematerializing our view of even the higher force throughout nature, or throughout life. Numbers have been dematerialized. We started off with digits 1 through 9, and then something revolutionary happened in the numerical world. The zero came into existence, or was discovered, if you will, which took the numbers 1 through 9 to infinity. So it was actually the zero, which is a non-number, which in effect is the dematerialization of the actual numbers 1 through 9, that actually expanded the capabilities of that which was not immaterial, the 1 through 9. So zero dematerialized numbers and took things to a completely higher level. Of course, matter, from physical to items you could touch or feel, to atoms, and into subatoms and subatomic particles such as neutrons, bosons, leptons, all the way to nothingness. All right. So you see all of these examples, guys. Kerosene lamps to electricity. You can't really see it. You can't really touch it. We've gone from writing letters, to email. The digitization, or the dematerialization of actually writing a letter or writing something on paper. It's still going on, but for the most part, it's been totally dematerialized, that activity. All right. Books have been dematerialized, from libraries filled with tens of thousands of books, to the internet, to Google, to Kindles. All right. Books have been dematerialized. Telephone operators, remember the old times when you'd have to make a call and you'd get an operator who was responsible for switching your call and connecting it to another call by putting a wire into the wall. Well, today we have digital operators that do that at the speed of light. We have phones that have gone from analog phones, the phones on your wall with the cord connected to it, to digital forms of telephones like iPhones and Galaxies. Photos have been digitized or dematerialized. Remember the albums you would have. Remember going into a dark room or watching films of people developing photos in a dark room. And today that process has been dematerialized. You have far more photos on your phone than you ever could possibly have in albums stacked on your living room coffee table. Okay, so photos have been dematerialized. Storage has been dematerialized, from file cabinets to big storage units to the cloud. which is a dematerialized form of storage. Music has gone from vinyl to 8-tracks to cassette tapes to MP3 files to now streaming. You don't touch a movie, you don't touch a music item today. You can't feel it. It's basically infinite, but dematerialized. Movies have been dematerialized from VHSs to, you get the point. Warfare today has even been dematerialized. We've moved from having tanks and attacking other enemies via big giant monstrosities to attacking, having computer hacks and ransomware. So everything is going through this movement of dematerialization from something physical that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can see, that you can point to something bigger, something grander that you can't quite touch, feel, or point to. And anything that is dedicating its existence to bringing about this dematerialization is always a huge opportunity. All right. Now, there are two key facts about this dematerialization process that I want you to understand. Number one, fact number one, non-physical is always and will always be bigger than the physical. This is a very important fact to understand. All right. So never in history has the dematerialized form or the digital form of something ever remained smaller than the physical or analog form that it is replacing. So as an example, email today, the digital form, the dematerialized form, is far bigger than the physical form of mailing letters across the world. All right. So you will always have more emails than physical mail. All right. There will always be more streamed videos than there ever will be VHSs. The dematerialized form grows to dwarf the physical form. The digital form will always dwarf and be exponentially bigger than the analog version. All right. Vinyl records versus stream music. You will always have more stream music available to you than vinyl records were ever available to you. Analog phones on the wall versus smartphones. I heard numbers like there are more smartphones in the world than there are toilets. There will always be more smartphones than now phones on the wall. In the beginning, no, but ultimately the digital form of something, the dematerialized form, is always greater in number and greater in value. This is an important fact to understand. You will always have more books on your phone, or more books available to you on the internet, or more books available to you on your Kindle than you could ever have in your house or ever have even in a library. So never forget this fact, that the physical or digital form will always grow to exponentially dwarf and become greater in number as well as greater in value than the analog or the physical counterpart. That's fact number one. Okay. Fact number two, the most valuable things in life are non-material, aren't they? Aren't they? God, loyalty, honesty, faith, hope, happiness, decency. And let's not forget that ultimate non-physical item that we all so adore and crave for, love, right? So even in our everyday lives, we look to the non-physical things for the highest level of value. And this is a movement throughout life. It is a movement throughout every aspect of life, including the world. It is the natural flow or the natural evolution of being itself. All right. I'm getting an indication that my internet is unstable, but I hope everything is okay. Here's an example of some companies that have and continue to dematerialize things. And these are companies that I have personally, fortunately, benefited from over the last several decades, actually. Apple, I've owned Apple in my portfolio from a split adjusted price of the mid 30-cent range. Apple has dematerialized photos, music, communication, etc. Amazon has dematerialized books, retail stores, shopping. It is, and it's still currently in the process of dematerializing those things and activities. Google has dematerialized information, yellow pages, encyclopedias. Netflix has dematerialized movies, entertainment. Spotify has dematerialized music, talk shows, etc. Zoom has dematerialized physical meetings and certain forms of travel. Now, if you look at the opportunities that each one of these companies, and there are hundreds more actually, you will see that any investment at any time in the past would have been extraordinarily beneficial to in these companies and in virtually every single other company that's not listed here, whose existence is dedicated to making things smaller, making things more digital, making things less physical. This is the theme that is driving the future, okay? And it is making many of the old themes obsolete, okay? Now, what is next on the list to be dematerialized? So we see these things that have been, that photos and movies and music and mail have been under this process of dematerialization for quite some time. But is there something new? Is there something that hasn't been going through this process for 30 or 40 years or 50 years yet? Yes, there is. And this is where I believe there's the greatest degree of profitability and opportunity ahead of us. So I believe that money and property are next on the list. You see, money is one of the oldest technologies known to man, yet it has not gone under this, it is only beginning to go through this dematerialization process, the dematerialization of money. And property is also beginning to go through this process of dematerialization. Now, gold has historically served, rightfully so, as one of the main forms of money, one of the soundest forms of money. But it is very physical. It is very heavy. It is very hard. It is hard to transport. It's hard to divide. Do you understand? It's hard to move. It's hard to transfer from one person to the other. It's hard to secure. It's expensive to hold. All of these things. With physicality comes some of the weaknesses in today's digital world. Banks, all right, which actually their existence has come from the fact that gold was money. Banks were born because people had to store gold, and banks began to write paper based on their gold holdings. Okay, so banks came into existence because of gold. So banks serve money. And so this old system of gold being the hardest, most secure form of money, and banks serving that system, I believe, is starting to go through the process of dematerialization. And Bitcoin, which has come into existence in the early part of 2009, was created specifically for the purpose of dematerializing gold itself and the entire banking system. And so far, it's doing an incredible job. Now, I want to talk very closely. I want to talk momentarily about the 4 stages of money, because every time I bring up the subject matter of Bitcoin, I get a split audience. Those who have absolutely no faith in this digital dematerialized form of money, and those who do. And then, of course, there might be a third group of those who have no idea but might be curious. Now, in order to understand where I'm coming from, you first have to understand the 4 stages of money. All right. And then you'll quite understand why I believe that Bitcoin, along with a few other things, but Bitcoin in particular, presents us with the greatest opportunity going forward for something in the early stages of dematerialization. You see, the other things that I just mentioned have been going through this process for decades. We're just capturing the dematerialization of money now, so the future is extraordinarily bright. This is akin to capturing the internet all the way back in 1995. So here we go. Let's understand the 4 stages of money. First of all, money's first stage is to take the characteristic of being a collectible. And so if we look at gold as an example, gold was first regarded as something beautiful, a shiny rock. People used it more as a collectible. They liked it. It looked nice. It was cool to have and show around. It was a collectible amongst a smaller group of people. As more and more people began to collect it and see gold as something that a lot of people regarded as good to hold, the next stage gold developed into, which was a store of value. So people started to realize that, look, I can own this shiny gold rock and later sell it to someone because many more other people regard this collectible as valuable. So as the collectible group grows and grows, the next stage is that item moves to being a store of value, which can be sold back and forth between each other over time. So store of value is stage 2, where I take certain forms of other things of value, convert it to this, and know that this is going to store the value relatively well. Why? Because there's always going to be a buyer later. Store of value is stage 2. Stage 3, medium of exchange. That is when, all right, if once enough people began to use it as a store of value, an increasing number of people start to trade with the item. Okay, so we go from store of value to medium of exchange. I take this gold, I need a herd of sheep. I take this gold and exchange this gold for a house. So it becomes a medium of exchange for bigger items. Okay, not the smaller items, but the bigger items, homes, a boat, several cows, if you will, as an example. So the third stage is a medium of exchange for larger items. Then the last stage, it becomes a unit of account, which means that everyone starts to price everything in the item. So for instance, the US dollar is sort of like a universal unit of account. Many people throughout the world price things in dollars. You say, okay, that house is worth $350,000. That boat is worth $150,000. That car is worth $75,000. All right, this computer is worth $2,000. So more and more people began to price everything in the unit. And that is the final stage of money. Now, a lot of people say, well, Oliver, how can Bitcoin be money when it's not a unit of account? And I know that's an individual speaking to me or asking me that question that does not know the natural order of how something becomes a unit of account. It first starts as a collectible. It then moves to a store of value. Then it moves to a medium of exchange. And the last stage is a unit of account. You want to capture something that is not in the last stage, but in the first or the second stage, because the future is much bigger. The future in front of that item is a lot bigger. But if you catch it at the unit of account stage, you're too late already. The stabilization of that item and price increases in that item virtually come to a stop. So when it comes to identifying an opportunity that potentially can become a universal form of money, you want to capture it in either stage 1 or you want to capture it in stage 2. Now, the next question is, what stage do you think Bitcoin is in? Well, I'm going to tell you. Bitcoin is not in the collectible stage anymore. It was. Initially, when it came into existence, it was a collectible. It was something for the nerdy computer geeks that held it on their computers and met at little coffee shops and talked their jargon and whatever. But the rest of the world had no virtual interest in it, only those types. Then, right, that took place over a certain period of a certain number of years. And today, it has morphed more into a store of value. It has moved beyond the geeks. It's moved beyond the people who are computer scientists and only know things about computer code. This is now spread much larger across a larger spectrum of the human race. And it has moved out of the collectible stage into the store of value stage. But we're just starting the store of value stage. So we're still early. The potential is huge. Now, understand that gold took 5,000 to 6,000 years to complete its process. Okay. So we're early with Bitcoin. Gold's 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Okay. Now, Bitcoin's collectible price history. All right. Bitcoin came into existence in 2009 or so, but it really didn't start to truly stabilize itself and take off until 2011. So that's about a 10-year history. So Bitcoin has predominantly moved during the collectible stage from 0 to 20,000. Now that's huge in a short period of time. Gold over 5,000 years went from 0, right, to 2,000. Well, Bitcoin's gone from 0 to 20,000 in a sense, first 10 years. Bitcoin's store of value history. Now, we've got 10 plus years of the collectible history of gold. Now, we're just starting the store of value history. We basically have 1 year in the store of value, maybe a little bit more, a year and a half or so in the store of value period. And in this period so far, we've moved from 20,000, I'm taking the high, to 64,000. Now, remember, we're in the beginning. This store of value stage could last years and years and years. And we're in the very beginning of the store of value stage of Bitcoin. And it's already moved from 20 to 64. It's come off of that recently, but that's the movement from the start to the high so far. Now, this is the first 10-year, this is the Bitcoin's price history overall. What I want to show you is what is Bitcoin's future in this stage long term. So I told you we got 4 stages to go through. We've completed the first stage, the collectible stage. We're just starting the storage phase. Now, long term, what do I expect this stage to produce? This is my expectation. All right. So you take it for what it's worth. All right. I have a long history of fairly being right with these macro ideas, greatly being right with these macro ideas. All right. So what is my view? Well, I believe we go from this $20,000 to $64,000 range, and over the next period, let's call it the next 10-year period, we're going to be greater than $2 million of Bitcoin. That's right. More than $2 million of Bitcoin. Now, when that happens in the next 10 years, who knows? All right. But I believe that is relatively conservative. Okay. Almost done here. All right. Almost done here. All right. Thank you. So that's my longer term, next 10-year outlook for Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people say, well, Oliver, $2 million of Bitcoin. But remember, Bitcoin is infinitely divisible in the form of what's called Satoshis. So people are going to be thinking about the $2 million per Bitcoin price. They're going to be thinking about the Satoshi price, which is much, much, much smaller than the overall price for one Bitcoin. What's next for Bitcoin, in my view, medium term? Now, this is medium term. What do I mean medium term? The next year or so, okay? So 10 years long term, next year or so medium term. Let's look at the past to come up with that. Now, if we go back to recent past history here, guys, I want you to look to the left-hand side of the chart. You're looking at 2017. You're looking at May of 2017 on the far left. In the middle of the chart, at the peak of the chart, you're looking at late 2017, early 2018. So in the middle or so of 2017, this was two cycles. This was last cycle, right? Bitcoin went from 2,000. I don't know if you can see it here. Look at the prices here. Bitcoin went from 2,000 more or less to 20,000. Now it did this in 7 months. It 10x'd in 7 months. Okay, 2,000 to 20,000. Then what it did, it dropped all the way back to 6,000. Now, this became a very significant floor. Now watch this. It's very interesting. The next cycle, remember, we're in the next cycle, okay? After topping out at 20,000 and we dropped to basically 6 area, we go from 6 to 64. So more or less another 10x. So what is this about? So the prior cycle, Bitcoin 10x'd from 2 to 20. This cycle, Bitcoin went from 6 to 60, more or less, a little bit more. So another 10x, and then fell. Now it's finding itself at 30,000, okay? The same way 6,000 was the new 2,000, okay? So now, all right. Clear all. What's next? We've gone from 64 to 30. 30 is the new 6. Let's assume that 30 is the new 6. What if we were to 10x again? Bitcoin is very mathematical. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be altered. It is very mathematical. Everything is baked into the code, making the predictive capability of Bitcoin a lot easier than the stock market, than the bond market, than the futures market, all of which has a lot of external forces that can influence it. But Bitcoin has the least number of external forces. Things are baked into its code, making it far more predictable than almost every other curve from here, taking us to $300,000 on the next medium-term move. My view is yes. My view is that $300,000 is next on the list over the medium term, because Bitcoin has a history of 10xing from its floor or more. Okay? Now, I believe that you can do this. I believe that you can take this theme of dematerialization. What is dematerializing something? That's an opportunity. What companies are dedicated to dematerializing something that has existed for a long term? What is helping something get smaller? What is helping something become more digital? What is helping something become less physical? And that will represent a huge opportunity. This is what I teach a large group of my wealth traders. I've been teaching my wealth traders for the past 11 years, and the progress, the amazing returns that they've made from this one theme, absolutely mind-boggling. I can give you a long list of things, from Apple plays, to Microsoft, to Facebook, to NVIDIA, to Netflix, to Adobe, to all of the things that we've played that are based on this specific theme. And of course, the most recent thing we've bet on with this theme is Bitcoin, all the way back from $3,800 per coin. We're now sitting just above $33,000, $32,000 a coin, having reached 64,000, but we're still early. Don't forget the 4 stages. Now, guys, if you're interested in maybe joining my wealth group, the normal price is $4,000, but for the benefit of you guys being here, the appreciation you guys are being here, I'm cutting that price in half for the next 48 hours. Now, this is one price for the rest of your life, one price to know every single thing I do, one price to know every single trade I make, one price to see every single dollar I put into the markets, when and where. One price for the rest of your life, for us to meet multiple times a month, for us to study the markets together, to scour the earth for precisely the opportunities that are baked into this movement of decentralization. All right. So all you have to do, guys, is go to ifundtraders.com/wealth for more information, should you be interested in that. I also want you to sign up for my Bitcoin trading club. It's a waiting list right now. I open the club once every 6 months. The club is going to be opened up in the next several weeks, I believe in the next week or so. So if you get on the waiting list now, the opportunity could be yours. I got traders involved in Bitcoin at the low of last year at $3,800 an ounce, a coin. Bitcoin went from 3,800 to 64,000. Now it's pulled back about 50%. This is an amazing opportunity for us to take the next run up to that $300,000 number. Thank you very much for attending, and make sure you come back tomorrow at 4:40 for my second and final event of the show. Joe, thanks. Thank you very much.
Oliver, thank you. That was great. We had a great turnout in the room, folks. I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, we're going to be doing this all day again tomorrow, and Oliver will be back tomorrow afternoon, as you mentioned. We want to thank everybody for your feedback, comments, suggestions here at Money Show. It makes us better, and we appreciate you more than words. Oliver, thank you again, my friend. Your insights are phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Have a great evening.